Hey guys, in this lesson we would understand angular velocity and its applications. Let's first understand what is angular velocity. Angular velocity is the speed of an object when it goes around or moves in circles. As we know, velocity is represented as distance divided by time. We can either use the word velocity or we can use the word speed. Speed is also equal to distance divided by time. In the same way, angular velocity is equal to angular distance divided by time. We can write down speed is equal to distance over time as s is equal to d over t. Similarly, we can write down angular velocity with a symbol omega, so it's this kind of a W, equal to angular distance, because when we go in circles, the distance that we cover in angles is represented as theta. So angular velocity is angular distance, which is going to be represented with the symbol theta, divided by time taken. We would be using this formula in order to do the problems related to angular velocity. If let's say we are here in the circle and we go around the full circle so that we come back to the original position, that is where we start at, then the angle that we have covered up is called theta, equal to 360 degrees, because it was the full circle that we covered up in angle. Now, if we want to write down this 360 degrees with radians, we can write it as 2 pi radians. And why do we write down 360 degrees as 2 pi radians? Because if we want to change degrees to pi radians, the formula is divide by 180 multiplied by pi. 180 times 2 is 360, so this would give us 2 pi radians. Therefore, one full circle is 360 degrees in degrees and 2 pi in pi radians. So this angle is when we take a full round in a circle. Another thing we have to remember here is that when we take a full round in a circle, then time taken has a special name called time period. So time period is the time taken to go around in a circle once, or in simple words we can say time taken to complete one cycle is time period. And one more term we have to remember related to angular velocity is frequency. Frequency is the number of complete cycles taken in 1 second. So if we are fast enough to complete 5 circles in 1 second, then the frequency is 5. The units for frequency is hertz. So we would say 5 hertz, or we can also say 5 cycles in 1 second. Cycles can also be called rotations. So frequency is 5 means 5 rotations per second. If we are asked to find the total distance covered when we go around in a circle once, so that means if we start from here, go around and then come back at the same spot, then how much is the total distance? Then the total distance is nothing but the circumference of the circle, and the formula to calculate the total distance will be 2 pi r. That's the circumference formula. Let's use all of this information to do an example problem. Let's say the question is, a wind turbine has 3 blades, each measuring 3 meters from the center to the tip. So if this is the wind turbine, it has 3 blades. The distance from the center to the tip is 3 meters. At a particular time, the turbine is rotating 4 times a minute. So this turbine is rotating 4 times a minute. This means this is the frequency given to us. So we are given the frequency as 4 times, means 4 cycles in 1 minute. We can change this to seconds. We know 1 minute is 60 seconds, so we can say 4 times in 60 seconds. Now remember, we can get time period from the frequency, and time period is equal to 1 divided by frequency. This means time period is the reciprocal of frequency. So if frequency is 4 times over 60 seconds, time period will be 60 seconds divided by 4 times, because all we have to do is just reciprocate the numerator and denominator, and when we solve this we get 15 seconds in 1 time, or 15 seconds in 1 cycle. And that is what time period is, how much time 1 cycle takes. So time period is going to be 15 seconds. Now we know that we can use frequency for time period, so we have got our time period. Let's read part A of the question. The question says, determine the angular velocity of the turbine in radians per second. We know angular velocity is angular distance divided by time period. So if we want to find out angular velocity, we need angular distance and we need time period. We already got the time period, that is 15 seconds. Angular distance would be equal to 2 pi. Since the time is considered for one full cycle, in one full cycle the total angle is going to be equal to 2 pi. And why are we taking it as 2 pi and not in degrees? Because they want the angular velocity in radians per second. So 2 pi radians is the angular distance and time period is 15 seconds. Therefore, we can leave the answer as is 2 over 15 pi radians per second. And that is our angular velocity. Next part of the question is how far the tip of the blade traveled after 5 minutes. We know there were 3 blades in this turbine. Tip of the blade is going to be here. So how far means the distance. And this distance is traveled by the tip of the blade. So how much distance this tip of the blade is going to travel is what we are calculating in this part. And distance is always equal to circumference, which is 2 pi r. Now when we use this formula directly, 2 pi r, it gives us the distance traveled in one full cycle. And one full cycle time period is equal to 15 seconds. That means the distance traveled in 15 seconds is 2 pi r. We are supposed to find out the distance in 5 minutes. Let's find out 5 minutes is how many seconds first. We know 1 minute is 60 seconds. So 5 minutes is equal to 300 seconds. So we want to find out the distance traveled in 300 seconds. So all we have to do is take the distance of 15 seconds divided by 15. This would give us the distance in 1 second multiplied by 300, and this would finally give us the distance traveled in 300 seconds. Now let's fill in the blanks or fill in the values that we know. We know radius is 3 meters given in the question. That was here. Length of the blade from center to tip is 3 meters. That is also the radius of the circle. So we have 2 times 3.14 times radius is equal to 3 divided by 15 times 300. When you put all this on the calculator, we get 376.8 meters. Why are we using the unit meters? Because the radius is given to us in meters. Therefore, the distance traveled by the blade in 5 minutes is 376.8 meters. And that's how we apply angular velocity or circumference formula. We need to know the meanings of frequency, time period, angular velocity, angular distance, and circumference of the circle in order to solve all of these types of problems.